You will never guess what I did. I watched a movie and then I watched it another few times and I watched it some more and I'm going to talk about it now so I can stop watching it already. And that, based on the title, is Bug. 2006, directed by William Friedkin. And I guess I didn't know anything about this movie going into it other than what the cover art looked like on the physical releases, and I knew who was in it: Ashley Judd, Michael Shannon, Harry Connick Jr., and I knew that it was directed by William Friedkin, and all I knew is people were like, this is a messed up movie. That's all I knew. So I guess, I would not watch this review if you have not yet seen it. There's going to be spoilers because I think that's the nature of it. The climax in it is not that spectacular so much as it's arriving there, I think. So William Friedkin said that he saw the play. Tracy Letts wrote it, and he said that Michael Shannon was this Peter character, and he said that I knew that he had to be this character. That was just him. And I think he kind of went from there. He said this has to be a movie. And I have never seen the play. I would love to, but from what I understand, it doesn't stray too far from the movie. I'd be really interested to see it. So I don't know if that'll ever happen, but it does exist. And now, we have the DVD. It's been on DVD for a while, and then Imprint just did a Blu-ray a while back. And I will say the Blu-ray is not like a new transfer or anything. The quality of it is not that great. The picture quality, there's a lot of dark lighting, like the dark scenes in it, and they don't transfer that well. There's a lot of digital noise and stuff. It's not even like film grain, just it looks like digital snow in it. It's not good. I would expect, Kino said that they were going to do a 4K. They announced it a couple years ago. They said that it was going to be 2023. They took it back because of rights issues, and now I think that they have the rights again. So they have not officially announced that it's on deck, but I think that that's surmised. So really hoping to see that, because I think that Kino, like a 4K, would really do it justice. I mean, because this is not good. If you don't already have this Blu-ray, I would not suggest it. There is a new commentary track on here and stuff. Both of these have a commentary with William Friedkin, but this one also has a new commentary with author, film historian Troy Howarth and Tony Strauss of WK Books and editor of WENGS Chop magazine. So I don't know. I mean, it has all of the same special features with that extra commentary track on there. I listened to both commentary tracks a few times, so at first I really didn't like William Friedkin's commentary track, but I was like, it grew on me. They're both good. I mean, if you see this and you're interested in it, you didn't like hate the movie. I think this is a love it or hate it movie. So if you enjoyed the movie, I would suggest both of the commentary tracks for different reasons. But yeah, I would wait and see if Kino has 4K for you in the future. So yeah, I'm going to spoil stuff from here on out, I think. So if you have not yet seen it, I would say probably don't watch this. So the movie opens with a still shot of a man laying, seemingly dead, surrounded by tinfoil with like a blue hue. It's like a blue glow to it. And it's like a couple second shot of that. And then it's straight into, there's an aerial shot of the motel. It's the rustic motel, which we learn is in Oklahoma. It looks just very desolate. And it was a really eerie feeling. So there is an aerial shot zooming into the motel, setting up where we are. And then we're automatically inside the motel. We see Agnes, played by Ashley Judd, and it's establishing basically her life. It seems very depressed, poor. It seems hot and sticky. It doesn't really establish that there's a scene with the air conditioner. Everything has a kind of grimy feel to it. It just seems low class. So, and we also, it doesn't look like she's staying there overnight. It's not like the typical, you know, empty motel stuff. It looks like she's been living there long term. So that's interesting too. We see her emptying change and stuff out of her purse into like a change jar. And so you can only imagine that she's not, you know, she's probably scraping by, and she's drinking. And it was just a very, you know, I think that the feel that you get from meeting her character, you learn a lot about her instantly from that one establishing scene. And then the phone rings, and you could see the panic. You know, panic sets in. You don't know who's calling her, but you can tell she's not comfortable with it. In Friedkin's commentary track, in that scene, he talks about fear and how fear is irrational, and he talks about the mask of sanity. You know, he says that sometimes people have a seed of evil in them, and evil is often accompanied by good and stuff. And, you know, I will say, like, after having watched this a few times, I don't necessarily think that Agnes is evil. I don't think that either of the characters are evil, but I think that it's a statement on, you know, psychosis or paranoia. But, you know, regardless, he talks about the mask of sanity and fear, and he calls her fear irrational. The fear of the phone. You know, she answers the phone and no one's on the other end, and he calls that irrational. And I'm like, you know, is it irrational? An irrational fear because the phone isn't the risk? He calls that irrational. But I think that it's, you know, a bigger statement. It's implying that there's something on the other end that she's afraid of. So, you know, there is a rational fear. We later meet who she thinks is calling her. Whether or not he actually was, it doesn't really, you know, it doesn't really specifically say whether her ex-husband was in fact calling her. I don't think he was. I think that it was a delusion that she invented. It sets up the fact that she has this paranoia that already exists in her before she meets Peter. So I think that's really important to the story. After we meet Agnes and her room and the phone and all that stuff, it cuts to a general store. You know, she's buying what looks to be, I don't remember, wine or liquor or something, and a guy walks up behind her and grabs something off the shelf from next to her, and she jumps. Like, she is very, very jumpy and scared, and her body language, I think, is really great and in showing us just how scared, you know, she really is. She has this immense fear, paranoia, it seems. You know, somebody walks up behind her in a store and she jumps out of her skin. So that was interesting. But then she is almost in like a trance, and she fixates on an onion, a red onion in the store, and it zooms into it and just says that there's more. And then it like shows a shopping cart. And I don't know, like the first time I watched it, I was like, oh, she, like, there's an empty shopping cart, there's a red onion, she lost her kid and it has something to do with a red onion. Like, that seemed very clear to me. I don't know if, you know, it's that clear to everybody the first time, but I just thought that I feel like the director was trying to do something very profound or abstract with this just random shot of a red onion. But to me, it was very clear what he was saying right off the bat. I don't know if everybody feels the same way, but it was almost kind of like a, yeah, I get it moment. I don't know. I can see not everybody thinking the same thing. So after that, I think that the introduction is very, very important. And then things start picking up quickly. We learn that she works in a lesbian bar, and we learn that, you know, her friend RC, they come over and have a party, do drugs, whatever. We see them doing drugs and drinking, and like Peter's there. So RC has to leave, and, you know, the first thing that Peter says to Agnes is, "I'm not an axe murderer." Like, isn't that kind of a weird thing? It's like, is this foreshadowing here or something? No, not technically, but it's just a very strange thing that's the first lines that this character spoke, is, "I'm not an axe murderer." Okay. You know, Agnes is very lonely. Even though she seems reluctant almost. She and Peter are like drawn to each other. There's a scene outside the motel where she's sitting on the swing and he says like, I pick up on things, and she's like, well, what are you picking up on from me? And I was just watching that thinking like, what a typical thing to say, because isn't that like, they say that like women love hearing about themselves, and I just thought that writing was very realistic. Like I could see this interaction between them really happening. It's kind of giving little snippets of information about Peter because we never really learn too much about him throughout the entire movie. They keep divulging information about him. We kind of get a feel for Agnes right from the beginning, I think. But Peter, I pick up on things. He's looking at the painting in the motel. There's a lot of stuff in it. There's stuff, like specifically says stuff. Okay, so you don't know exactly what he's referring to, what he's seeing from this picture, but the word stuff is vague. I thought that was interesting also, but he's seeing things, and he says that he picks up on things because his father was a preacher. And at the beginning, he has a very innocent feel. My father was a preacher. He's very quiet. He seems to be like a subdued personality. And we see later on that he is very capable of rage and anger. So he initially has this innocence, and I think that Agnes is lonely, Peter seems innocent and harmless, and she asks him to stay over. It seems like it makes sense, like they're being drawn together. So while he is admiring the picture, they are having a moment, and then you hear a cricket, and he finds out it's like they search for it, like, where's the cricket? Okay, it's the smoke alarm. So they beat the hell out of it or whatever, throw it outside, get rid of it because it's got like whatever he says, like uranium or something in it. And she's like, oh God, like she's astounded that there could be something harmful in something like a smoke alarm that everybody has in their home. And that's the first time he knows something about something as innocuous as a smoke alarm. You better not have that because it's dangerous to you. And it's almost like setting up this conspiracy-minded paranoia type. He's heading in that direction right from this moment. So I also thought that getting rid of the smoke alarm, I was like, there's going to be a fire, because why would they introduce the smoke alarm specifically? Okay, like it's a bug, that's where the bug noise is coming from, but the smoke alarm, they're introducing it into the movie. It's almost like whenever you introduce a gun to the story, it must be used. Okay, we're introducing a smoke alarm to the story, so it's going to come up in the future. This is some foreshadowing here. I was almost certain of it. So then there is a scene with Agnes and Peter, and I think she tells him that she feels safe with him there or something. He says, you're never really safe. You'll never be safe again. Not with all the technology and chemicals and information. And Agnes says, I don't like to think about that. And that line I felt carried so much weight because that's exactly what people say. People, there are things that are, unclassified, and people just don't acknowledge that they happened because I don't like to think about that. I don't like to think that the government could infect people with syphilis just to see what happens, which they mention in this later. And I'll talk about that whenever it comes up, but I'm just like, that is so true. People don't like to think about, I don't like to think about that because it makes me, what am I going to do about it? I don't want to think about it. Yeah. And then Peter talks about the machines. Sometimes, at night you can feel it. They nothing makes them happier than knowing the machines are up and running. And he's talking about a them, very paranoid sounding, like they are doing this to us. And Peter's very much the victim. So then Peter, out of nowhere, after talking about all this like schizoid stuff, says, I know you hate me. And it's like, it's clear Agnes doesn't hate you. She wants you to be around, clearly. And then he says, you lied to me. He gets information about losing her 6-year-old at the grocery store. We learned that scene with the onion, that's exactly what that was. She said that she lied, and she does get scared. and she asks him to stay over again. Which we already know. We know Agnes is scared. She wants company. She's scared and lonely. She lost her kid at the grocery store, and that's like a pivotal point in her life. So Agnes says, it's nice having someone around. She cannot allow herself to be vulnerable in this situation. She can't allow Peter to know, like, I want you here, and I don't even know that, it's interesting because it's almost like they're both using each other for what they're lacking in their life, and she can't allow herself to be vulnerable and admit that she wants him there. But she says it's nice having someone around. It's nice having someone around, not you specifically. It's nice having someone around. I could take it or leave it. It doesn't have to be you. It's nice having someone around. So she tells him that, and then he immediately says, I haven't been to bed with a woman in a long time, and I think I could go to bed with you. Okay, slow down. Like, that's like a little too romantic. It's been a while, but I think I can go to bed with you. And she's like, come here, boy. And I'm like, what the? It was like the most awkward exchange. But I mean, it makes sense because they're both like super strange people. William Friedkin talked about their relationship as like, Agnes loves Peter, and like he threw around the word love, and I'm like, I don't think that it's like so much love so much as they're using each other for like whatever device they need to in their life to get to whatever like, it's clear that they're coming together as this weird, psychotic like duality, which, so they have their little sex scene, which is more like an infection scene. It's like close-up shots of their skin and their body hair and sweat, and I'm like, okay, this is adding to like the sweaty, sticky, disgusting motel scene. It was just kind of, I don't know, it sketched me out. And then you start like hearing the bugs. Every time they open the door in the motel, you hear the bugs. It's like the like the cacophony of insects in the summer night is what you hear. And then you hear that when they're having their sex scene. And then I suspect like the climax is like whenever they do that weird like jump scare of like the mantis on the... I was like, oh, this is extremely bizarre and uncomfortable. But that's good. I think that really drives home a point, because it's not so much, it's not a positive, like, loving, thing. It seems sinister in nature. I also noted that there's a lot of close-ups of the ceiling fan, skin, fragmented shots. It's all very close-ups, but it's all very fragmented and like almost like disheveled or like confusing. So the next scene, Peter wakes up to a bug bite, and it all begins. As soon as they have sex, like, it's all downhill from there. They have the scene in bed where he's like, oh, it's aphids, it's plant lice, blah 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 blah. They describe a brood of bugs as matriarchal, and Agnes asks where he learned that term, like, where do you learn a word like that? And he says, oh, I was homeschooled. My father didn't believe in school. And he later goes on to say, like, I didn't learn that from my homeschooling, like, that was outside of it. But it's just interesting that even in something like this, they're pointing out like homeschooled kids as like, this guy's a total freak. And, oh, my daddy, the preacher, didn't believe in school, so I didn't get the typical government school learning. And it's like, it's pretty much the point that they were making. And so that stuck out to me, that of course the freak would be homeschooled. I see what you're doing there. They also have a scene, like, this is after they had sex. Oh, you look better without clothes on. You know, some people look nice and you get them naked and they're a big disappointment. I thought that was probably symbolic. They both said that you look nicer without clothes on. What does that mean? That's like vulnerable. You know, I think that there's something to be said there. I don't want to take too far of a leap, but I think that that's more than just you look good naked. I think that there's more to be said there about their relationship with each other. I don't know. Let me know if you agree. I think that there's some symbolism there. And then Peter goes into talking about having a center, and he says that there's a place that's just you without being spoiled by any other people, and sex and relationships cloud that space for him and make it difficult to be just me. So difficult to not worry about being somebody else. And that seems to be true, you know, that it's like, what is that called? Mentally deranged in the presence of other people. Like, remember those like twins that wouldn't talk to anybody but themselves, and once one of them like basically willed herself to die, the other one started talking, and it was like, okay, so like it's like a psychosis in pairs. So these people come together, they have sex, they have this like intimate thing, and then it's like, so now I've seen a lot, I've watched reviews on this too, like other YouTubers say like that they think that Peter infects Agnes with his psychosis, and I'm like, I don't really think that, you know. I think that she had her own to begin with. You know, she had, you know, the phone, was it really, you know, was that really happening? Or, you know, there was definitely some paranoia there, if not a delusion. So I think that she is a broken person that she was broken and fragile, and she was able to succumb to Peter's delusions, is basically like, I think, the whole point. But that's the whole thing. Like, you have a place where you're just you, and Peter can't handle being around people because this happens, apparently. You know, he just goes off the deep end. So the phone rings after that, and Agnes says it's Goss, and Peter says, you were Goss once. And I'm like, what a strange reply. It's Goss. You were Goss once. The way he says it, it's like it's almost accusatory the way he says it. You were Goss once. And I'm thinking, what's Goss? Like, Goss is her ex-husband. She says it's Goss. You were Goss once. What is he? What, like, he is the fear for her. So you were Goss once. And I'm just thinking about what is the implication of that. And I don't really understand fully what that means, other than he's saying that you were something else and now you're this. Which is interesting, considering what just happened in the last scene. The phone rings and he says, hello? If it's static, you don't do that. So it wasn't static. That's what I think. Some people think that, you know, he says that it's just static. Some people think that's true. I think that he was lying to Agnes. I don't know. But he didn't want her to get anyone to spray the room. They said that there's bugs, and she thought that, you know, the motel should do it. It's their motel. Like, they should handle it. And Peter's like, oh, you can't because they're after me, blah, blah, blah. He started getting really upset, very angry, because she wanted to bring other people in. So Peter basically leaves. He abandons the situation because he doesn't want to bring Agnes into his past. And she's getting super upset. She's like, I basically want you here, and we just had sex, and you're not telling me your past. Like, she is getting really upset because he's not being upfront with her. And he leaves, and she tries to downplay it again. She says, I need a man like I need a hole in my head. But then as soon as he shuts the door, she flips all the way out and is like screaming. And it's almost like, you know, it's like a fear of abandonment, or like losing something, I guess. But she's downplaying it. She's saying, I need a man like I need a hole in my head. But then it's like clear that you're flipping out because this guy's leaving. And again, like I don't think that she loves him. I think that she needs him to fill some vacancy in her life. Her lost son, you know, she has like this broken side of her, and he's filling some void for her. So then Peter finally explains that he, you know, tearfully, that he was in the army and they gave him injections and testing and blah 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 blah. And I don't know that I'm not carrying a disease or a contagion or something like that. He begins to talk about typhoid, legionnaires. That's how they start, government screw-ups. I don't know. He says things with like grains of truth, and then he goes off on these tangents, and then he relates it back into him directly. So like all of these things are directly impacting me. After he explains his past to her, they embrace, and the helicopter sound is like shaking the whole thing, and the ceiling fan is vibrating, like, you know, everything. There's glass breaking in the room. So, you know, I think that all of this is invented. I think that it's all a delusion. I don't think that the room is really shaking. And in the one scene, you know, with Goss, whatever, it wasn't. It's like it is to them, but then to anybody outside, it's like everything's normal. So the glass is breaking, like all this, it's chaos inside the motel, and then it cuts to a serene shot outside the motel, and everything's fine. There's not a helicopter, there's not an earthquake, it's not like pandemonium outside. It's normal. It's what's going on inside the walls of the motel room that is not normal. So that right there, that shows you that it's all like some sort of delusion, or what's going on in the motel room is not, it's not linked to reality in some way. Saying that, the first time I watched this, I didn't see this as like a surreal movie. I wouldn't say it's surreal. I would say it's more of like a psychological thriller, but like, I think that it has like surreal elements to it, but it's not like totally outside of the realm of reality at the same time. It's more of like what is reality? It's more of a question of what is reality. I would say that. It's not surreal. So anyway, then Goss shows up when only Peter's in the motel. Peter's engrossed in studying a petri dish. Goss lets himself in. You know, we hear him moving outside, and then whenever he goes to come inside, Peter's like totally engrossed in what he's doing. And then as Goss comes in, Peter's like hiding behind the door, like this wall, so Goss can't see him right away. Like he's 100% on the defensive. It's very weird. Like you didn't even think that Peter knew that he was approaching, and then Peter's standing and hiding and on the defense. It was very, like, you know, it was interesting. And then Goss goes to look in the petri dish, and he like goes to like poke his head with his needle, and then he's like, you don't know what Peter's capable of. At first you think that he's totally innocent, and then you're like, what is this guy? Who is he really? What is he capable of? What is he doing here? You start to distrust him. I don't know. You don't know what his deal is. Goss begins, you know, he beat Agnes around. We saw him manhandle her a little bit. But then he's laying on the bed reflecting on an old 19-inch RCA TV they used to have, and he says he bought it with money that he made from driving a sausage truck. I drove that truck 20 hours a day sometimes just to feed the wife and kid. You ever do anything like that to Peter? And he doesn't really answer, but it's like, you start to get this sense of Goss, like, okay, he's abusive, but is he like really this monster that Agnes makes him out to be? I think it's like later on in this scene, he takes one of the items, the articles of clothes, from his boy Lloyd, and he's like sniffing it, and it's like he's having a fond memory of his lost son, and it's like, this is genuine. You feel like it's genuine. So is he really like this terrible guy? I don't know. Goss starts to say, you know, he's wondering why there's not a TV, and he says, we could be, what does he say? He says, we could be invaded by aliens, and you'd be sitting here with your thumb up your ass. And Peter said, could be. So Peter is less interested in real life emergencies, in getting emergency broadcasts from the news. He's less interested in the news going on around him in the world. He's more interested in his world. He's totally engrossed in what's going on in his world, even though, you know, he thinks that it's all the government and whatever, but it's all real and it's all affecting him, and he doesn't care what's going on outside as long as what's going on in the motel room is that's what's most important to him. Goss says he doesn't see a bug in the microscope. Agnes doesn't see it either. So is it there? Peter says that Goss should leave because he's infested, and Goss says, "I believe you are." Every time the door opens and closes, we hear, like I said, we hear that bug sound, like just like the summer, like the insect sound. It starts and stops when the door opens. That was really creative. RC comes and tries to call the cops because Goss was there, and Peter flips all the way out. Agnes starts to think that there's something in her skin, and they dig it out with a safety pin. RC says that they saw a doctor. So Peter thinks that, like, they told a doctor, they told them about me, and, you know, they're gonna come get me. And as the sense of this cat, dread or danger sinks in for Peter, we start to hear the helicopter sound again. And whenever they say, "Oh, it was just a dermatologist and I didn't tell him about you, Peter," then he feels safe again, and then the helicopter sound goes away. So it's like when there's an impending danger, we hear this sound, and it's like the world is closing in on him. I think it signifies impending danger to him. So then Agnes admits that he gets Agnes to admit that they had bugs, and RC says there's no bugs, and the doctor says you did it to yourself. And RC said there was a Dr. Sweet that's been asking about you at the bar, and he gets agitated. So RC admits that Dr. Sweet is real, okay? So there's that. Agnes slaps RC and says, "This is the only thing in the world that I have. Why are you trying to take it from me?" And then the next scene is Agnes cradling Peter like a child. So it really is Agnes filling the void of her lost kid with Peter. She feels like RC is trying to rip Peter away from her, and she's trying to protect him. She wants to protect Peter. After RC leaves, she's talking to Peter. Agnes is talking to Peter, and she tells him, she says, "I don't know why I love you so much. I don't hardly know you, truth be told." She says that they only slept together that one time, and all we talk about is bugs. But I'd rather talk to you about bugs than nothing with nobody. And that just solidifies that she is absolutely terrified of being alone. It goes from a super intimate moment where Agnes is cradling him and telling him that she loves him so much, to Peter violently ripping his tooth out because that's where the egg sac is. His acting was phenomenal. I mean, his acting was phenomenal throughout the whole thing, but wow, what a convincing scene. Agnes looks in the microscope whenever he crushes his tooth, and she says millions. She sees millions of bugs in the microscope, or millions of eggs, I don't know. She sees millions, but she didn't see any before. So, like, now is the delusion taking hold. After the egg sac thing and the tooth thing, metal music with an insert shot of larva squirming around. Okay? Something. Okay, squirming. And then Dr. Sweet rolls up in his car, shuts the door, and the music abruptly stops when the car door shuts. And I think that is so cool. Like, that is just such a cool feeling. I don't know. I didn't go to film school. I don't know what that's called, if there's some, but whenever the music syncs up with the action on screen like that, that is just so, like, creative. So then Dr. Sweet rolls up. RC says Dr. Sweet is real. We see him. He rolled up in his car. He's outside of the motel, so he must be real. But then he comes in, Agnes is alone in the room, and everything's covered in aluminum foil with blue bug lights. He's now in the room. I feel like inside the room versus outside the room is important. Goss breaks in and manhandles Agnes. Dr. Sweet comes in and, says, he introduces himself and tells Goss that they need to talk alone. He basically says that Peter was his army project, and, everything Peter says is true. He was mine. I'm responsible for him. But we have your kid and we'll give him back if you turn in Peter, pretty much. Or we know where he is, we'll get him back. Dr. Sweet takes a hit of the crack pipe. We learn that, we only saw Agnes do drugs one time in the whole movie, and that was the very beginning with the party with RC whenever we met Peter. We haven't seen her do drugs again, but some people think that the entire movie is like this drug-induced thing, and it could be because the drugs are still there. They're still on top of the dresser, and he asks, like, how often do you do that? And she says, as often as I need to or want to or something. And then she does it, and then she says, I'd be careful. And he's like, I'm okay. Like, I'm okay with these drugs. And she's like, no, I mean, you're sitting on 20 gallons of high test. Like, why do you have high test? And he's like, I don't see a jet ski in here. Friedkin says that the entire thing with Dr. Sweet could be a figment. He said could be. I think that's really cool because he leaves it up. It could be either way. And I think that's got to be very difficult to do, to make it so open-ended that it literally could be one or the other. But he does admit that the whole scene is more surreal at that point than real. And he says, what is real? It's clear Agnes is afraid of loss. The whole scene with Dr. Sweet shows that Agnes believes Peter's delusions at this point. She begins to hear the helicopter that Peter's hearing. Dr. Sweet doesn't hear it, but he can tell that Agnes hears it. One question, how does the doctor know about Lloyd? So there's two possibilities. The first possibility is that Peter's correct and that the government did plan this whole thing and Goss took Lloyd and is working with the government and colluding with them. Either that happened or it's all invented. It's all Agnes's delusion. It can't be either, because how else could he know about Lloyd unless, Goss was there? Like, why would they divulge that information? I feel like it doesn't make sense. I think that there's two possibilities. Either Peter's correct and this is all real, or it's all delusions, one or the other. I don't think there's any gray area in between, but you let me know what you think. And then Peter enters looking absolutely methed out. He looks haggard. He's got, sores all over him, dripping with blood and whatever. And he calls the doctor synthetic, a machine, not real, into some monologue about conspiracies and mixes up real things with fiction. And the whole time I'm just thinking, okay, is the whole machine thing symbolism? I don't know. Is the machine thing part of the government machine? Is it an allegory? Could be. He mentions Tim McVeigh and Ted Kaczynski and Jim Jones and all these people, and Peter thinks that he's the ultimate victim in all of this and that it's all one big collusion that ends with him. They're all connected because all these things are bad. It's all one big government plot, and he's at the middle of it. He ended up stabbing the doctor because he's a machine. I'm not an axe murderer. Okay. So then they cover themselves and they burn and all that stuff. But did that really happen? Because during the credits, there's the shot of Lloyd's belongings in the hotel sitting there and the phone's ringing. The room's not burned. After the credits, it's the same beginning shot of the doctor laying there dead, assuming he's dead, laying there motionless in the foil and the blue light, and he's laying there. So that's during the credits, after the credits. During the credits, there's a shot showing the room is normal. None of this happened. After the credits, there's a shot showing the doctor laying there in the foil. This did happen. It's like, what is real? I have no idea at this point. And that's it. I mean, people argue one way or the other. I'm not really sure. I mean, I lean towards everything was a delusion. That's my opinion. That's what makes the most sense to me. It could be related to the drugs. I think that it has more to do with two people that are absolutely broken and lacking things in each of their own way, coming together and forming this just absolutely broken dyad, basically. And they have psychosis together, is what I think. I think that that makes the most sense. And I think that the whole purpose is, like I said, questioning reality. So, I don't know. But let me know what you think. I've not heard a lot of people's opinions. Like I said, I watched a couple reviews on here. Didn't really, like, a lot of them didn't really do a deep dive. It was just kind of surface level, which I get, not wanting to spoil it. But like I said, I don't think that you can really talk about the plot without spoiling the whole concept of the movie, because I heard people complain that the climax of the movie with the burning and everything is kind of anticlimactic, which I agree. If you're looking for some, like, huge, you know, revelation or whatever, I would get how that's disappointing, but I did not see the end of the movie as a culmination of events so much as, like, I saw it more as like a journey, I guess. Their relationship evolving, I guess. I have a lot of opinions about this, but I'm curious what other people think. If you've seen this, you know, if you've heard the commentary tracks, let me know. I thought that both commentaries were really good. I think that Friedkin kind of talks down, you know, Friedkin's is more like listening to a film school lecture. I think he's talking about stuff in that regard, and the other commentary, the new commentary on the Imprint release with the author, film historian, an editor, theirs is more like a traditional commentary where they're talking about, oh, there's this story about filming and this happened, and, you know, little quips about filming it and stuff like that, and oh, whenever they did this scene, this happened. I really enjoyed both tracks. They were both good for different reasons. The first time I listened to the Friedkin one, I didn't enjoy it because I felt like I was being talked down to almost, but it grew on me. So let me know what you think about that. But I very much appreciate everybody watching this. If Kino comes out with the 4K, guarantee I will be getting that and I will be reviewing that. So look for that in the future. But as always, you know, thanks for watching. We'll be talking about weird stuff in the future again. So see you when it's done.